Hello everyone. Welcome to KHA Homeopathy Study Group Pro Bono webinar. Good morning, good afternoon and good evening. So nice to see many of you from different countries and different time zones. Before we start our webinar, we always thank Universe for giving us this great opportunity. And Dr. Shrija, our KHA coordinator, will start the session.
Hello everyone, myself Shrija Ayoubzadeh, KHA coordinator. Welcome to respected speakers, chairman and CEO KHA, Kavita ma'am, volunteers and all the attendees to the KHA webinar. KHA Homeopathy Study Group Pro Bono was organized and founded by homeopath and humanitarian Kavita Kukunur, president and CEO of Kavita Holistic Approach. This study group is intended to be an offering from Kavita to the homeopaths around the globe, sharing goodwill and solid clinical work within the classical model are foundational principles for KHA. KHA's mission and vision are very unique: to inspire young homeopaths, mentor, provide excellency for educational purposes using holistic approaches via webinars, which are based on principles of classical homeopathy and provide professional continuing educational homeopathy credits for practitioners. We provide merit certificates for spreading the light of homeopathy around the globe. Dr. Kavita is a member of Kevin Friendly Foundation, a non-profit organization that helps to serve poor people in greater needs in India. She is the recipient of Mata Alman Community Service Award by National Center for Homeopathy and Best Entrepreneur Award from Dr. N. Lingaraju, Principal of JSPS Homeopathic Medical College, Hyderabad, India. We are extremely happy and proud that we celebrated 10 years of our book, Beyond the Limits, a challenge to prove herself. And at KHA's second annual celebrations, our honorable guest of speaker, Dr. Jawahar Shah, Chairman of Enlightenment Education, launched audiobook and hard copy of her second write-up, A Dose of Spirituality with Kavita. Dr. Kavita donated the proceedings of the book through KHA Study Group platform to various charitable organizations and homeopathic associations. To name a few are Kevin Friendly Foundation, CHC, DHMA, JSPS College, BT Seva, NCH, etc. We will share the recording link in the Zoom chat box, and interested ones can have the glimpse of the book. Purchase link will also be shared. As of now, we have over 250 plus recordings on the professional webinars related to homeopathy, health-related topics and inspirational talks available on our channel Kavita Kukunur. This webinar is moderated by KHA family, myself, Dr. Shrija Ayoubzadeh, KHA coordinator. It is being recorded as we speak and we are live on Facebook. We will take questions at the end of the webinar. We will post the jot form in the Zoom webinar chat at the end of the webinar. Please fill it to receive your certificate. If you're watching live webinar, email us at kstudygroup@gmail.com. Kindly mute yourself and turn your video off for better connections. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shrija. She's dedicated and manages KHA activities so well. And we have Dr. Nupur Shah, our KHA volunteer. She would like to speak. Dr. Nupur, you are muted. Hello.
Hello everyone. Myself, Dr. Nupur, KHA volunteer. I am glad to be a part of KHA study group pro bono. I would like to take privilege to read the code of ethics. To be a KHA speaker, need at least 1 to 2 active volunteering. Only KHA speakers team are promoted in newsletter and webinars. KHA provide volunteering for 2 to 12 months. Respect and inspire volunteers to grow. Active volunteers will be promoted through our website, social media, and added to WhatsApp group. Articles of volunteers will be posted on KA website and newsletter and will be sent for publication at other journals too. Active volunteers are eligible for prestigious KA annual awards. Volunteers are eligible for KA inspirational talks. Volunteers are eligible for case discussions. KA promotes homeopathic organization as well as their mega events. KA promotes KA promotes great work of speakers through their book reviews. Honorable guests may propose their future courses or event after the webinar. KA maintain a healthy and happy environment, so keep only like-minded folks. KA requests everyone to maintain the confidentiality of the group. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nupur. She's our enthusiastic KA volunteer, and both Dr. Shrija and Dr. Nupur are the best volunteers. Thank you all. I thank our Homeopathy Study Group entire team for the continuous selfless support with which we are able to make our pro bono activities and webinars so beautiful. These webinars are for educational purposes only and should not misuse any of the course content without speaker's permission. Always seek an expert homeopath for treatment. Being an outreach coordinator of CHCPR committee, HNA CPD provider encourages homeopaths to become CHC certified and to participate at HNA accredited CU webinars. Today, May 15, 2022, we have two honorable speakers with two interesting topics. The realm of the imponderables, homeopathic color and sound remedies, holy water, gem elixirs, prayer remedies by Ambika Waters, and the road to clinical mastery through live case analysis by Dr. Shahram Ayoubzadeh. It will be 2-hour session and might extend 15 to 20 minutes more to take more questions. We had both speakers last year at our KA webinar, and we are very glad to have them today. We have second speaker coming right after Ambika's webinar. So please stay tuned until the end of the webinar. Now let us take privilege to honor our second speaker, Dr. Shahram. Dr. Shahram Ayoubzadeh, MD, ND and Homeopathy, practices as a naturopathic doctor and homeopathic physician in Canada. And he is also a trained and medical doctor. He is a graduate of the Faculty of Medicine in Dakar, Senegal, specializing in tropical and infectious diseases. Since his arrival in Canada in 1987, he has done extensive study in the field of holistic and natural approaches to healing. In 1990, he obtained his MD from Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine. Soon after, he focused his attention on the field of homeopathy, graduating from the Homeopathic Universalis and Dynamic School 3-year advanced program and Master Clinician 2-year program in classical homeopathy. Dr. Shahram continues to attend many advanced seminars studying with master homeopathic doctors such as Dr. Rajan Shankaran, Jan Skolton, Elise Timmer, Louis Klein, to name few. Drawing on 30 years of clinical experience, Dr. Shahram has successfully brought together the knowledge gained from various case taking and case analysis methods. Thank you so much, Dr. Shahram, for sharing many things about Canadian Homeopathic Medical College last year. And we welcome Dr. Shahram, Dean of Canadian Homeopathic Medical College, to our webinar.
Thank you so much, Kavita. Thanks for the privilege of being here. And thank you for all your volunteers. And I should also say really thank you to Ambika. I really enjoyed your presentation. Many light bulbs went on my
color light bulbs.
And colors for sure. I will definitely will be in touch with you, and I have a few questions and thoughts that I could share with you. I would love to.
Thank you.
That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. So today, the purpose of today is really talk about this clinical mastery. Road to Clinical Mastery is a clinical training that we offer here at the Canadian College of Homeopathic Medicine to our third-year students. And after seeing the impact on the students, we decided with Kim Elia through Whole Health Now to offer it to the wider public and allow the experience of homeopaths, because homeopaths have different ways of taking cases, and because of that, they have various results. So we thought if we do offer this opportunity for homeopaths and graduates, even maybe third-year students, people who have some basic foundation knowledge of homeopathy, if they could see what happens really during a consultation, what a really deep case taking looks like, and how do we navigate the information and how do we prescribe. So this road to clinical mastery has been put together in order to achieve that field. I think a lot of people have many good clinical theoretical experiences, but not enough proper supervision, not enough mentors in order to make sure that they take really good cases. Also going to seminars, I have gone to hundreds and hundreds of seminars, but usually seminars are about presenting the outcome of a case. We don't go through the depth of all the questions that we ask in order to reach to a conclusion. So, so that's what these seminars are about. We had one around 2 weeks ago. I'm going to share with you the result of that as well today, just what was the consultation like and what was the outcome, how did we analyze it, and what did we prescribe. Just to give you an idea of what happens during this consultation, I'm going to share you another case also with a patient, a live patient that we had at the Canadian College of Homeopathic Medicine as well, to bring to light what's really a proper case taking is. Ambika really emphasized on history. I think homeopathy, if we take history out of homeopathy, we have nothing really. We just have some robotic data that we don't know what to do with. So taking the proper history, but also connecting every dots are the most important things in a case taking. So that's what I like to share with you. I prepared a PowerPoint presentation just to make sure I go through all the points. And then depending on time, I'll go through a summary of the few cases that I like to share with you. I also like to apologize to those of you who have heard this talk a month ago. I didn't know whether same people will be here or not, but I can recognize at least one name that is present, so I apologize for repeating the information. So let me share my screen. So the name of program is Road to Clinical Mastery. Before starting talking about this, I think what I like to share with my patients, with my students, with general public, when I ask myself, why did I switch to homeopathy from conventional medicine? I know that it all had to do with if we need to cure, we have to find the cause. It's impossible to cure a disease without knowing the real cause of the disease. That became very clear to me going through the medical schools. One of the reasons I did infectious diseases is because, at least from an external perspective, when you deal with malaria or tuberculosis or leprosy, which I saw a lot of patients in those fields, or AIDS or so on, you know there is a pathogen outside that is affecting the person. The success of conventional medicine in infectious disease is really about going after the parasite or the bacteria or the virus that is destroying the person. Unfortunately, there is almost nothing for helping the immune system to fight this. But at the same time, we have been able to save thousands and millions of lives. So we have to really acknowledge that. Many people used to die from tuberculosis. Many people used to lose their limbs and parts of their body to leprosy and from malaria and all this infectious disease. But the reason conventional medicine is more successful in those fields is because we know that there is a culprit outside and we try to eliminate it. But when we go to all the non-infectious disease, which is really all the other chronic diseases that we deal with, that's the biggest weakness of conventional medicine. I remember through some experiences within my clinical work, I told myself, if we don't know how to treat a simple headache, how to cure, we know how to treat really well in medicine. But if we cannot cure a headache, how can we ever be able to cure a cancer or cure Parkinson or any other advanced pathology? And I knew that conventional medicine doesn't have any answer to that. So that's why I said, well, I know if my professor of neurology with 30 years of experience, all he can do is to give a medication for migraine, and he clearly tells me, well, we don't cure, we only treat, then I know that in 30 years I will be repeating what he's doing, which is finding a better medication for migraine, but never curing the cause of the disease. That's what enticed me to look into alternative medicine. I started with acupuncture, studied acupuncture for a while, practiced it, then went to the naturopathic college, fell in love with homeopathy and dedicated the rest of my life to homeopathy because I saw that homeopathy has a very clear understanding of a person as a whole and has a very unique definition of the cause. And it's actually, this is, and I think this is something is really not well talked about in alternative medicine, in holistic medicine. So needing what really needs to be cured in a case is the most important thing. I don't want to get to all the details of, we know that cure is the most important thing. Patients want cure, they don't want treatment, but they settle for treatment because they cannot get a cure. We very often, when we tell the patient this is the cause or something else is the cause, most of the time those are only triggers, they're never the cause. A lot of us think of that a human being may be like an onion with many, many different layers, which is a good way to look at the complexities of the pathologies. But we have to also remember that all the layers of the onion could be the same. They're all onions, they're not different things. So there is a possibility that there is always one thing that explains everything about a case. So if a patient got 7 remedies to get better, there is a possibility that maybe there was one remedy that over-encompassed all those remedies as well. So looking at a human being as a tree with many different branches, but also remembering that if one branch of a tree is oak, very likely all the other branches are oak, is also a good way for us to remember that even though many remedies can help the patient, and we have thousands of examples, I have thousands of examples of remedies that really help patients, but helping patients and curing the pathology, curing the cause of disease is not the same thing. And then Ambika mentioned that the polychrus and the constitutional remedies are, I think, totally misunderstood or overused. We have to recognize that anything in nature has a healing power. So therefore, anything that exists outside of us can be a constitutional remedy to some of us. So dividing remedies to those who are constitutionals and others who are not, I think it has been very good in the past, but it is not the good way to go forward in the future. We have to recognize that every single remedy can be the most amazing healing power for an individual. But the question is how to get to these remedies. So until now, we have used provings in order to, because that's the most solid foundation for prescriptions. Provings can provide very solid, but very often limited knowledge of the totality of the remedies. Especially when we're dealing with non-poisonous substances, the provings can bring a lot of change in the dream, they can create changes in the emotional state, they can create some changes in the generals. But with a lot of provings that we do nowadays, we don't know the depth of the pathology of the, except for very toxic, if we use toxic substances for which we have toxicological knowledge of the substance. So when we have a lot of mental, emotional information but don't have enough physical expression during a proving, then a remedy will be a one-sided remedy, and we may not be using it as often as we should have. So because of that, it is extremely important to find other ways in order to understand the remedies at their depth and understand and use the clinical experience to develop our understanding of the remedies. So provings are really important. Repertorization is really important. But the cured cases are very likely the best way to see the full spectrum of what a remedy is about. But in order to do that, our job is not just about having a patient who come and give us some keynotes of a specific remedies, and we say, wow, everything points to that remedy, therefore let's give it to, and we do, and the patient gets better. I think everything we do that, the patient is very happy. But if I really ask the clinician, how well do you know the patients? And if we don't know the patient to their core, to their depth, it means we don't know that expression of the remedy in that specific patient. So because of that, it's extremely important to make sure anytime that we are in front of a patient, we use the patient as a way to understand the materia medica, understanding the remedies. Our patients are our best teachers because they open our eyes to many aspects of their remedies that we may not find in materia medica or in the repertories that we have. So with that, we do know that in homeopathy, when we talk about the cause, what we're really talking about is this, that even though in a case there are many, many branches, but all these branches are very likely connected to a trunk. Cause is that one thing that explains everything about the patient. Cause is the common link, the common denominators of all the symptoms of the patient. If we can find where is the trunk of a case, and if we go after that and we don't give up until we see that all the branches have been affected by the remedy, then we know we're having a very deep healing of the chronic pathologies. This is obviously not the case for treating acutely or improving symptoms that patients have. I'm talking about eliminating the root causes of the chronic diseases in our patients. So connecting all the dots is the most important part of the homeopath. That means how everything connects to each other. That should be the purpose of a consultation. So we have to somehow free ourselves from homeopathy or anything else. We just have to be very curious to understand what is really happening in the patient that is sitting in front of us, and why the patient has gone to this specific defense mechanism, which is a surviving way. It's a way to survive as opposed to truly live. Anytime we are not really living and surviving, we develop a pathology at some level. So I went through all of that. I'm very aware of the time. So having this keen observation of anything that the patient expressed to us from the time that they come into the consultation until they leave, everything about them is the parts and parcels of the same package, of the same thing. We have to be able to connect them all together and understand them, and therefore understand the remedies in a much deeper way. Now, the challenge is that I almost on a weekly basis, I see a patient who has a similar history that what I'm going to share with you. This is from one of our students who finished the third year and asked me to take her case. She has been treated by 4 or 5 different really good experienced homeopaths. And during her consultation, she has been given these remedies: aconite, silica, arsenicum, natrum muriaticum, sulfur, causticum, natrum silicata, phosphorus, chocolate, calcarea carbonica, calcarea sulfurica, carcinosinum, and now calculus. And she's taking silica and calcarea sulfurica in tissue salts. These remedies have helped them, some better than others, like phosphorus has had some good effect on her, but nothing has really held in here. So the question is, when somebody sees homeopaths with 20, 30 years of experience, and 3 different homeopaths or 4 different homeopaths end up giving different remedies with various results, but nothing cures the patient, what does this really mean? Does it mean homeopathy is not strong enough? Or does it mean that we practice homeopathy in a very superficial way? That we truly don't understand the core of what aconite is, or silica is, or arsenicum is, or natrum muriaticum is, or sulfur is, or maybe we believe that a patient needs 20 remedies at any given time. But there has to be, we have to, as a community, really self-study and say why a patient went to, I remember Sankaran once said, he had invited another very experienced homeopath to sit together and take cases for a few weeks. And at the end of every consultation, the remedy that he would come up with and the remedy that she would come up were very different. And he was very surprised as we took the same case, why do we come up with different remedies? And then she says, once we had a case, and I was so sure that both of us came up with the same remedy. So I turned to her and said, is the 3rd letter of the remedy A? She said, yes, we finally got it. And she says, are you thinking of platina? She said, no, I was thinking of Staphysagrea. So that is quite interesting. It's a beautiful story, but it shows also there has to be something about the patient or our understanding that we as homeopaths come up with many different ways of prescribing. I like to believe that, yes, it is true that a remedy can present itself in so many different ways. It is also true that no human being suffers only from one thing. I know that, and this is but I like to believe that at any given time, if you study the totality of the person, you will see a very coherent picture that everything comes together. And if we all use the same methodology in terms of understanding how everything connects together, then we shouldn't have so many different results for our prescription. And the best, the truth is really how a patient reacts to. So here, it doesn't matter if Sankaran with platina was right or the other homeopath with Staphysagrea was right. The question is, will the patient want to respond to one or the other, or maybe doesn't respond to any of them? Therefore, that becomes just a theory. I think at the same time, the patient who knew some homeopath, Sankaran says, the patient says, oh, I thought you were all talking about anacardium. But so this is, so the purpose of this road to clinical mastery, and it's really, this is the confusion I have had myself for over 30 years of practicing. Depending on how I look at a patient, I can give a different remedy. But the truth is, when I give remedies, just some improvement happens, unless if I find the real simillimum of the patient. So that's why taking time to finding what is the true core of the patient is the most important thing. So that's the purpose of this road to clinical mastery days, workshops that we are having. And it wasn't until, I think it was sometimes around 6 or 7 years into my practice that I had a patient who came with bladder cancer. He had traveled seven hours by car to come to Ottawa. He has been diagnosed for 3 years with his bladder cancer. And they have done anything that conventional medicine can do, with some results, but the cancer would stay and come back. The next option was to completely remove the bladder and then remove a portion of his large intestine and create a bladder and remove the prostate and create an artificial bladder from part of her large intestine. And he was 51 years old, and he says, I'm not ready to live the life of someone with an artificial pouch and artificial bladder and no prostate and no more sexual life. So I offered him to stay during the weekend, and I spent 5 hours looking at every single aspect of his life, from childhood until that time. At the end, I prescribed Aurum muriaticum natriunatum to him. And I started with a low potency with the 12C, and then went to the 30C, then 200. Within 3 days of taking the 12C, the bleeding from the bladder stopped. By the end of and then we went to the 30C. Within a month, he was taking the 200. At the 3 month, when they went to do the pre-op and prepare him for the surgery, the physician told him that there is no cancer left in him. And this is so many years ago, over 20 some years ago, that I have seen these patients. And when this happened, I kind of remember that when at medical college, I asked myself, if I cannot cure a headache, I will never be able to cure a cancer. Such a strong and important statement it was. So, which really means treating a cancer shouldn't be any more difficult than treating the headache, or treating a headache shouldn't be any easier than treating the cancer. We cannot cure unless we really know what needs to be cured in the patient. But that case was also very eye-opening to me. I mean, I have had other cancer patients who have responded really well, but that was the first time that I took 5 hours with a patient before I give them a remedy. And the effect of that was so amazing that from that point on, I invited all my patients with chronic diseases, even those that things seem to be, you take a case, you have all the reasons to give them lycopodium or all the reasons to give them pulsatilla. When I spend 4 or 5 hours with them, then lycopodium disappears and pulsatilla disappears, and a much deeper state emerges in the person. So we still can practice with the polycrest and some of the well-known remedies. But the truth is our patients don't come only to just get better. They really like to find somebody who can understand what needs to be cured in them and find out what is the very core of the person, and go there and eliminate that, and then make the patient to be free from symptoms and heal. So this is a good time that I share with you what does it really look like in real life. So the very first time that we had this clinical days this year, with our 3rd year, the very first patient that came for the consultation, sorry, let me stop sharing and go to the next slide and make sure I'm at the right place. So this was a lady who came for trigeminal neuralgia, very severe pain, as you can guess when a nerve is inflamed, how much pain it causes. She has seen a few homeopaths who have given her Espigelia, Rostox, Coffea cruda, and Verbascum. This is a very long case. We won't have time to go through all the details. But I want to give you some of the highlights of this patient. The very first, I asked her, I want to know, what is it that's bothering you the most? After giving her a 20-minute explanation of what homeopathy wants to do, just everything that I shared with you, that I really want to know the very core of the person. So I asked her this question. I want you to look at yourself in the totality of your life, see yourself as a 40-year-old tree, not just something that happened in 2019. I want to know what is the oldest, what is the thickest, what is the longest, what is the most disturbing branch of your existence. And as a result of that, the very first thing that she said, I'm very impatient, I'm very hot-tempered, and I'm very fiery. She didn't talk about her trigeminal neuralgia at this. And so then she go on to say that I'm hyper, I have high energy, I'm temperamental, I'm impatient, I'm irritable. So from the very beginning, hearing this word, hot-tempered and fiery, you could already get a sense of what is happening in her trigeminal neuralgia. Because you could say that these are the quality, fiery is quality of an inflammation. So this was the beginning of the case. She talked about how she cannot chew, she cannot talk, even her postures when eating can affect it. I don't want to turn my neck too much. She was using recreational drugs at different times. Sorry, I cannot go through the details of this case, but she talks about twinges or electric shocks that any kind of the stimulus outside or inside aggravates her, gives her twinges or shocks. She said the pain is fast and furious. So we have something that is fast, furious, hot, temperamental, and fiery. Yelling, lighting, talking, not as vocal now. If I become angry, and you can see the quality, anger is a fiery quality into, or upset, I feel it. It does not, if it does not speak, I don't feel it. If I don't speak, I don't feel it. No one can understand it. I'm scared to chew. Worse from touching, brushing teeth, eating, mental fear. It's all hot and sweaty. Bolts of shocks goes through her. It's like a jolt that paralyzes her. The burning is constant, intermittent shock, constant and predictable, and scared. Warm usually is better. Cold wind, damp, it makes everything tighten for her. And I asked her to describe the experience. How does she really feel it? She said, think of a vice, lack of movement, blocks that is from moving forward, confinement, tension, unrelenting, inflexible, not let you move, not let you flow, feeling stuck. And then she talks in the past, she has had migraines with aura and went through length of describing fear of movement was there during that time. Everything gave me the creep at that time. That was in her teenage life. Unknown was very frightening. Described it as a squeezing with little bit of releases. So the vice that she talked about, vice tight pounding that we experienced at the trigeminal neuralgia is a sensation that she had during her headaches. Pounding, throbbing, head in vice, a squeezing, little bit of release, a squeeze, release, a squeeze, pound, pound. Again, vice, a squeezing and pounding. Too much energy comes up again. Think of body being pumped up. We heard that at the very beginning of too much high energy exertion pumped up. It wasn't around her period, not related to her period. Then she talked about a vulvodynia that she had in 2015. Vulvodynia is, we don't know the cause as anything else in conventional medicine, a very strong inflammation of the vulva and vaginal area. So she said it felt like Tabasco sauce, if ejaculation felt like Tabasco sauce on me. Third time, it stayed with me for 2 damn years, constant burning irritation. So it lasted 2 years. So this constant burning, which we heard burning already when we were talking about the trigeminal neuralgia. So here you can see if a patient experiences squeezed and burning and hot and shocking and vice in many different parts of the body, they all have to be parts of the same thing. That's what I meant by if one branch is oak, all the branches are oak. And the art of the consultation is really seeing that connection between every part of the patient. So burning level 7 to 10 is like candles, it's like fire. You remember the fiery temperament that she talked about. Tabasco sauce down below, burning liquid substance. It burns. Singing, been sitting, standing, walking, sleeping all the time. And the pain was from 7 to 10 level. And repeats the word burning. As if someone is pinching you, consistent burning. Worse when she's she feels alone again. How long I can't drink, participate in intimate conversation. I feel pretty lonely, at least when I can tell people vulvodynia was 2 years. She was very, once the vulvodynia disappeared, she kind of was so relieved, and now she's so afraid. In a way, she's hopeful that trigeminal neuralgia can also go away because vulvodynia went away, but she lives with this constant fear that the vulvodynia may never go away. So to make this very short, here we go. I go through her own case. The burning, constant burning vice keeps coming back, regardless of where you. She talks about trapped again, like a butterfly trapped in a jar, can't fly because confined in a space. So tight comes back, and then sensation of trapped is very strong. She's very claustrophobic. She doesn't like when she goes in a subway. She feels really panicky because of the number of people. These are some of the comments I was making as we were taking the case for students. The students could see that page when I take the case. She talked about her experiences with Spigelia, verbascum, and Rostox, and coffee of Buddha. Many other aspects to her, but what I really want to, I went through her cravings and aversions and all the regular questions that we ask our patients. She talked about aversion to spicy food. She really can't tolerate, and she comes from a country, from Trinidad, where they use a lot of spicy. And so when you see here something that is burning, that is fiery, that is very hot, and then when you go to the cravings and aversion, she says, I don't like the spice. The word, this spicy quality keeps coming back everywhere in the case. The remedy I prescribed her was capsicum. Now, when you think of capsicum as the hot pepper, everything suddenly starts coming to life, because you can see the footprint of capsicum in every aspect of her life. So this is like a 4-hour consultation. Just wanted to talk to you about this. Once I saw capsicum everywhere, I went back and I asked her to go back to her childhood and tell me about herself and her mother and relationship with her mother. So these are the continuation. This hot temper keep coming back. And so you need to go really down, as I'm very aware of the time. I'd like to talk to you about the other case. So when I asked her to describe her mother, and she talked about how lycosis and some other remedies haven't helped her as well. Well, this is the follow-up. Sorry, I went too far down. So anyway, just to make it very short, when I asked her to describe, she talked about how her mother has a strong fiery temperament and how she used to beat her up until the age of 5 or 6. And then At that age, she learned that the only way to not to be slapped or beaten up is to behave properly. So she became very much, she suppressed herself. She suppressed her anger and she suppressed all the other emotions in order to not to get any beating. You can see the footprint of the Solanaceae family with the violence and aggression toward the child and everything. And then I said, well, how would you describe your mother? She says she's very spicy. Everybody calls my mom a spicy person. And then she says, you should see my grandmother. She is way more spicy than my mother. So here, even in her relationship to describing, so from the very beginning to the very end of the consultation, we see something is very hot, fiery, spicy in every aspect of it. Capsicum has been amazing for her from the very first time that she took it. She started with a 30C, which helped her a lot. Symptoms came back a bit. She went to a 200, created an aggravation, and then improved. I have asked her not to repeat the remedy, and she has done quite well. So this also means if you look at face trigeminal neuralgia, you will not see capsicum. So it's not because a remedy is not there that you will not be prescribed. But if you do know capsicum and you know the materia medica and the provings, you know that capsicum is a good remedy for nerve remedies in general, but it's not under trigeminal neuralgia in our materia, in our repertory. But it is under face pain along the root of a nerve. But for a homeopath, you have to really know where to look for those rubrics. If you went directly to trigeminal neuralgia, you will not see capsicum. So the remedy, with the proper repertorization, you can come up with a remedy. Capsicum is a huge remedy for people who suppress their emotions and their anger. Very, very often we give a stephysagria when we see this burning with suppressed anger. With vulvodynia, often we prescribe a stephysagria and other remedies that suppress their emotions, like Ignatia also can do that. But the quality of capsicum is so different than the stephysagria, so different than Ignatia or verbascum or Spigelia than all the other remedies. But it's not until we take a very deep case and we can see where everything comes together in a coherent way that we can prescribe. Now, I should just say, when I was talking about this case with the students, it looked like a lot of people think because she talked about an insect, we have to think of a poisonous insect. The image of a caterpillar trapped in a jar, so that maybe we need to use a caterpillar that has poisonous quality. But those are the images that don't explain the totality of the person. So that's one case. The next case is very brief. I cannot show you a follow-up, unfortunately, but I can show you how again. So by looking at the totality of the case, this is something we did very recently on May 7 during that clinic there. The patient that we saw, she's a homeopath herself for many years, over 20 years. She has seen many, many homeopaths over the years. She said around 2017, she saw a patient. The patient had the Mancinella spooky kind of quality into her. And she said, I felt something jump off her into me and I got diaphoretic. She started sweating. She became terrified. I told her, I'm not feeling well. I got in my car. I don't know how I made it home, but felt I was having a heart attack. She has been given many doses of phosphorus because she's so open and very sensitive to other people's energies. She has been given anaconda, lachesis, crotalus, and nothing worked for her. There is this squeezing sensation that she talks about, the pain with fear of anticipation. And she went through many different images, often talking about this pull and squeezing. You remember squeezing was in the other patient, but we don't see the burning. We don't see any of the other qualities that came out with. And anytime I asked her to talk about the squeezing, she would talk about a constrictor, a snake, something that, and even the way she experiences the chest pain was as if a snake is biting you. It was all the images for prescribing the snake for her, and I understand why some homeopaths have done that. She talks about contraction, pulling, squeezing, a spasm, nausea is a concomitant. So I took an hour to understand this contraction. And she said, it's like I take your arm and really squeeze it hard. And she literally burned like that. It's as if you take the wrist and you squeeze it really hard. She talked about how she hates it. And I asked her to tell me more about, she talks about the terror that keeps coming back, everything else. No, these are mine. She talks about terror over and over. She talked about trapped again, very similar to the other patient that in here. She said, it's like you're in a house and then you know the police, you can hear the sirens of the police coming and they're going to come to get you and they all have guns and they're approaching your house. This is the kind of anticipation and the feeling of being trapped in this house and there is no way. This bad news is coming, loss is coming, nothing you can do about it. I asked her again to more about trap. She says, no way out of it but to die. That's the only. She says, I'm in a room house I used to own, hanging on the floor. Something is coming and there is nothing I can do, nowhere to go. I made a comment here. If we don't understand what is this incessant pain in her life, we cannot be able to cure her. Unbearable suffering. And then as she talks about this, I asked her, well, tell me more about this banging on the door, like the police is coming. She talks about this unbearable. And there's nothing you can do about it. And then her mind goes, she says, my lips were being split when she was 3 years old, and it was a stitch without anesthesia. And father, who was a doctor, I couldn't get them to stop it. And they all held her down and they did the stitches to her lips. She has that memory of everybody holding an arm and a leg. And so she says, this is how trapped you feel, but there's nothing you can do. And your father is actually contributing to this. There's nothing he can do to stop it. And so I asked her to draw trapped. She says, unbidden. And she says, I didn't ask for it. It just popped out of my consciousness. She says, it's like a woman that is tied to the train track and the train is coming. I was never tied to a train track. That's what came out. And I said, tell us more about tied. She said, no getting away. Why have you forsaken me, God? Sometimes I know better. Sometimes I have really felt abandoned. Why am I going through this? So this, she talked, as I talked to her about this trapped and tied, she talks about a few times went through rape. It actually didn't happen. So here we're going from this experience of being squeezed to a memory as a 3-year-old where she is held very tightly and they're doing surgery, stitches on her lips. And then when I asked her to talk more about this trap by asking her now to draw it, she has the image of a woman that is tied to the railroad track and the train is coming. So we have to understand the state of the patient in this moment. Now, when you think of a patient who is in the state, the lachesis or a snake remedy is not going to cure this patient. That's for sure. You know, the state of the person is not, oh, I need to give Crotalus cascabella to the patient. It's about I'm being tied with ropes to this train track and the train is coming at any time I'm going to die. So I think if you think of the intensity of this, you would think of, oh, maybe I need to give aconite to this patient because the patient is in this intense fear of something horrible is going to happen to me and kill me. One of the students says, well, maybe this is about fear of death and we need to give her arsenicum or remedies that have that kind of acute intensity into them. But here we need to understand that this is about being tied and bound. And the remedy, the group of remedies that have these qualities of being tied, bound, are the Euphorbiaceae family. So these are the qualities of the Euphorbiaceae. These are bound, tied, chained around, roped around, tied around, held tight, which is experienced as a 3-year-old. Tightness, taut, held, yet entangled, a straitjacket, caught, clutched, and so on. These are all the sensations that belong to the Euphorbiaceae family. And now, what is interesting in this, as we're talking about the Euphorbiaceae family, there are 2 events in her life that keeps coming back to her. One is at the age of 3, when she was held so tightly when they did the intervention. And then in 2017, when she got this experience from a patient that she found her as being spooky, described her as Mancinella, and she said it's as if something jumped off her to me and I got diaphoretic. I become terrified. These are the two biggest traumas of her life. The question is there a connection between the two? Of course, Mancinella is part of the Euphorbia family. So once you have that awareness, then you will not think of aconite or those other acute or big remedies that we do prescribe for the patients. Now, if you really go and look at the pathology of Mancinella and you look at the chest symptoms, you see a lot of constriction at the chest level. And a lot of the symptoms that she describes are so strong in Mancinella 4. So this is another case to show you that what happened in 2017 and what happened many, many years ago when she was 3 years old are exactly the same experiences. And the remedy for both of them are somehow related to the Euphorbia family. And if this patient is not given one of the Euphorbia remedies, she will never be cured. It doesn't matter how many really good homeopaths will see her and prescribe. Really, the last person who prescribed for her was Aurum muriaticum natrionatum. Now, when I took that case of Aurum muriaticum natrionatum of 20 years ago, I know there is absolutely no similarity between these two patients. So of course, the remedy is not going to have, even though it matches the symptoms of the patient, it can matches the grief of the patient, it can matches the sense of responsibility, but that's not what needs to be cured in the patient. That's not the cause of the pathology. So the remedy I prescribed is Mancinella to this patient. I just want to share with you this case, not because it's a cured case, but it's a case where it shows how everything about a patient, if you do take time and if you don't just go with the images of the snakes and the constriction, if you will stay with the patient is going to reveal to you gradually. Now, this is again a 4-hour consultation, 5 hours almost that we spent with her to make sure every aspect of her, that you see that this notion of being trapped is in every aspect of her life, from her childhood until today. It's not about those two events. Those two events are the biggest traumas, but she often feels trapped by her own emotions, really. That's what it is happening, and her traumas, including her strong fear of being possessed by a devil. That I think is just another bonus once you know Mancinella. So I'm very aware of the time. Maybe I stop here. I think I was able to express the point that it's not until we take a very deep case, and it's not until we see the totality pointing to the same thing, and we can decipher that we can cure patients. We can help a lot of patients, but helping and curing are not the same thing. So if we want to have a homeopathy takes its right place to cure very deep pathologies, we need to train homeopaths who are able to think beyond prescribing arsenicums and sulfurs and lycopodiums. Those are amazing remedies when they're fully indicated, but not just because repertorizations or cravings or temperatures will lead to that. You have to, when we prescribe sulfur to a person, we really have to make sure everything points to sulfur, which means we have to understand sulfur in a much deeper way than what a repertory or some of the materia medicas give us. And the only way to do that is that the next time you have a phosphorus patient, as you're giving phosphorus, invite them to come for 2, 3, 4 hours and take a very deep case and make sure everything is phosphorus. And if it is not, something else is happening that you have to find out what it is. So thank you for your time. I hope I didn't go beyond my allocated time, but I really appreciate this forum and this opportunity to share my thoughts with you.
Would you like to take any questions in the chat, or just see if any questions are there?
No, ma'am, no questions yet.
Very good.
It was wonderful, Dr. Shahram. That's a wonderful presentation, and in short time. sharing two difficult cases and arriving at the right remedies where, as you said, like instead of Staphylococcus coming up with the capsicum and crotalus and mancinella, the differential diagnosis, that is really a great learning. And Dr. Shahram's road to clinical mastery is a unique way of learning and taking the detailed case analysis, rubric and remedy selection and differential diagnosis. And I enjoy and get some tips from webinars of Dr. Shahram's presented at Whole Health Now of Kim Eliam. And all his courses are amazing and it will really help to improve our practice. And if you would like to share any of the information your upcoming so that participants can join Dr. Shahram, would you like to share any of your upcoming courses?
Yeah, so these courses will happen roughly once a month, except during the summer, and it will go until March of next year. The next course is on June 4th, which we will be taking another very challenging case of a patient who has been treated by different homeopaths, and we're going to take the case and see how far it takes us. So we're going to have one on the beginning of June and one toward the end of June, and then we take July and August off, and we start again in September.
Event on June 5th, 9 p.m. We have Dr. Manish Bhatia, founder and director of hpathy.com, will be sharing his knowledge on clinical application of organon in practice. And many more renowned homeopaths are lined up for our KHA webinars. And today we have with us many of our KHA volunteers, Dr. Shrija, our KHA coordinator, Dr. Nupursha, Dr. Mamata, Dr. Poonam Chablani, and many more KHA volunteers watching on the Facebook Live and many participants. Once again, I thank KHA Homeopathy Study Group team for the continuous selfless support in for making all these activities so beautiful. Always thank all the participants for their undivided attention and inspiration. And we always thank Universe and all the dignitaries of KHA speakers at our webinars. So with this, and Dr. Shrija, would you like to say anything?
Yes, ma'am. You can fill the JOT form. I have shared the link in the chat to get your certificates. Please try to submit in 1 to 2 days. And for any queries, you can reach us on khastudygroup@gmail.com. And also you can find the updates and the upcoming webinar details on our social media, like on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn pages. The group name is like KHA Homeopathy Study Group. And also you can watch the recordings on YouTube channel, Kavita Kukunur. Please try to reach us for any queries. You can email us anytime.
Dr. Shrija. And with your permission, Dr. Shahram, shall we end the webinar?
Yeah, it was a real pleasure. Thank you so much again it was a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Shahram and everyone. And Dr. Shrija, would you like to end the webinar, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you all. See you at next webinar.
Thank you, ma'am.